The metal floor was cold beneath Daniel Reed's knees as he crouched near the massive cage. Everyone else had cleared out of the cargo hold hours ago, but he stayed. The creature inside the reinforced bars looked worse than the shipping manifest described. Deep gashes marked her dark fur, and one of her legs was bent at an angle that made Daniel wince. "Easy there," he whispered, sliding a medical kit closer to the bars. "I'm not going to hurt you." The wolf-like predator from Ragnar. Seven watched him with eyes that gleamed like amber in the dim light. She was huge, easily the size of a small transport vehicle, with claws that could shred through steel plating. The manifest called her a specimen. Daniel thought that was a cruel word for something that clearly felt pain, that he had been working on the freight station Haven's Edge for 6 months now. The job was simple enough, moving cargo from one ship to another, checking inventory, making sure nothing got damaged in transit. Most of the crew were decent people, though they came from dozens of different worlds. But they all seemed to think Daniel was too soft for space work. Grint certainly thought so. The massive reptilian supervisor had made that clear from day one. Just this morning, he had cornered Daniel near the loading docks. "You spend too much time being nice to things that don't matter," Grint had said, his scaled face twisting into what might have been a smile. "Out here, kindness gets you killed." Daniel had just nodded and gone back to work. He had heard it all before. From Captain Hollis, who ran the human contingent on the station. From Pyra, the insectoid who calculated everything in terms of efficiency and found human emotions wasteful. From pretty much everyone who saw him stop to help a maintenance drone with a stuck wheel or share his lunch rations with the cleaning crew. But Daniel couldn't help it. He had grown up on Earth in a small town where people looked out for each other. When he finally saved enough to buy passage to the stars, he thought he would find that same sense of community out here. Instead, he found a universe that seemed to run on indifference. The creature in the cage shifted, and a low rumble came from her chest. Not quite a growl, but close. Daniel stayed still, keeping his hands visible. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "I read your file. They took you from your home after the mining company destroyed your habitat. Last of your kind," they said. "That must be lonely." He opened the medical kit and pulled out a scanner. The creature tensed, but Daniel moved slowly, giving her time to see what he was doing. He passed the scanner near the bars, and it beeped softly as it analyzed her injuries. "That leg is broken," Daniel said, more to himself than to her. "And you're malnourished. When was the last time they fed you properly?" He checked the feeding schedule posted on the cage. "Once a day, standard protein blocks. The kind of food that kept you alive, but nothing more." Daniel shook his head and stood up, walking to the storage lockers along the wall. He found his personal supply stash and pulled out a sealed package of real meat. It cost him half a week's wages, something he bought to treat himself on rest days. He brought it back to the cage and opened the seal. The smell filled the cargo hold immediately. The creature's nostrils flared, and her eyes locked onto the package. "Here," Daniel said, breaking off a piece and sliding it through the bars. "You deserve better than protein blocks." For a long moment, the creature just stared at the meat. Then, moving carefully, she limped forward on 3 legs and took it. She ate slowly, watching Daniel the entire time. "They're taking you to some research facility," Daniel continued, settling down on the floor across from the cage. 3 more days of travel. I'll make sure you get better food until then. And maybe I can do something about that leg." The cargo hold door hissed open, and Pyra skittered in on her 6 legs. Her compound eyes reflected the overhead lights as she looked from Daniel to the creature and back again. "You are wasting resources on cargo," she said, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into flat words. "This is inefficient behavior." "She's hurt," Daniel replied. "And she's not cargo. She's a living being. It is scheduled for sedation before arrival. The research facility requires all dangerous specimens to be unconscious during transfer. Your emotional investment is pointless." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. She has a right to dignity. Pyra tilted her head in that way insects did when they were trying to understand something completely alien to them. "You are strange, even for a human. Grint has started a betting pool on when this creature will injure you. She won't. Your certainty is not based on logic. Maybe not, Daniel admitted, but I think she understands more than you give her credit for. Pyra made a sound that might have been laughter or dismissal. I will note your decreased efficiency in my report. Captain Hollis will not be pleased. She left, and Daniel turned back to the creature. She had finished the meat and was watching him again. There was something in her eyes, something that looked almost like curiosity. I'll call you Ash, Daniel said, because of your dark fur. Is that okay with you? The creature, Ash, tilted her head slightly. Then she moved closer to the bars and lowered herself down, still watching him, but no longer tense. Daniel smiled. It was a small thing, but it felt like progress. Like maybe, just maybe, kindness wasn't as useless as everyone kept telling him. That he had no idea that in 3 days, this moment would be the only thing standing between the entire crew and death. Daniel's shift started at 0600 hours, but he was already in the cargo hold by 0530. He brought breakfast for Ash, real food that he had traded favors to get from the station's commissary. Fresh protein, not the processed blocks. As he approached the cage, Ash was already awake, watching the door as if she had been waiting for him. Good morning, he said, sliding the food through the bars. How's the leg feeling? Over the past 2 days, he had managed to get some basic medical supplies. Nothing fancy, but enough to set a splint and apply healing gel to her wounds. Ash let him work, staying perfectly still even though he knew it must have hurt. That alone told him she was smarter than anyone gave her credit for. She ate the food quickly, then moved closer to the bars. Daniel reached through carefully, and she allowed him to check the splint. The swelling had gone down. Good. You're healing fast, he said. That's good. Maybe by the time we reach the facility, you'll be strong enough to... He trailed off. Strong enough to what? Be locked in a different cage? Poked and prodded by researchers who saw her as a specimen number? The thought made his stomach turn. Ash made a soft sound, almost like a whine. Daniel looked up and found her staring at him intently. He had the strange feeling she knew exactly what he was thinking. I wish I could do something, he admitted. But I'm just a cargo handler. Nobody listens to me. He spent the next hour talking to her, telling her about Earth, about the ocean he grew up near, about why he left home to see the stars. It felt silly, talking to a creature that probably didn't understand a word he said. But Ash listened, her ears perked forward, her eyes never leaving his face. When his official shift started, Daniel had to leave. He had cargo to move, inventory to check. But he came back during his lunch break, and again during the evening cycle. Each time, Ash seemed happy to see him. Each time, he felt more certain that there was real intelligence behind those amber eyes, that on the 3rd day, everything changed. Daniel was in the cargo hold, sitting outside Ash's cage and reading her a story from his datapad. It was a children's book about a lost wolf finding its way home. He felt a bit foolish reading it out loud, but Ash seemed to enjoy it. Her tail even wagged slightly during the happy parts. Then the lights flickered. Daniel looked up, frowning. The station's power grid was solid. Flickers didn't just happen. An alarm started blaring, and Captain Hollis's voice came over the intercom. All hands to defensive positions. We have incoming hostiles. This is not a drill. Daniel's heart jumped into his throat. He had heard stories about raiders in this sector, but Haven's Edge had always been too far from the main routes to worry about. Until now, he stood up, looking at Ash. I have to go. I'll be back, I promise. But as he turned toward the door, it slid open. Grint rushed in, along with 2 other crew members. They were carrying weapons. Get to the shelter, Grint barked at Daniel. Oui, évacuating non combat personnel. What's happening? Raiders. Big group. They knocked out our engines with some kind of pulse weapon. Grint's scaled face was tight with worry. They're boarding us. 3 breach points. The ship shuddered, and Daniel grabbed the cage for balance. Ash was on her feet now, her lips pulled back to show teeth like daggers. Go! Grint shouted, and the crew members ran toward the main corridors where the fighting would be. Daniel started to follow, but then he heard sounds coming from the opposite direction. Footsteps, heavy ones, and voices speaking in a language he didn't recognize. The cargo hold had a second entrance, one used for large shipments. The raiders had found at point 3 figures came through the door, all armed with weapons that hummed with energy. They wore mismatched armor and had the hard look of people who live by violence. The one in front, a massive being with scars covering his face, grinned when he saw the cage. Well, he said in rough galactic common. The Ragnar, 7 Predator, worth more than this entire station on the black market. His eyes shifted to Daniel. And a witness. Too bad for you, human. Daniel's mind raced. He could run. There was a maintenance shaft behind him, small enough that these raiders probably couldn't follow. He could get to safety, but that would mean leaving Ash. The raiders advanced, and the scarred one, who seemed to be the leader, raised his weapon toward Daniel. Nothing personal, he said. Just business. Daniel didn't think. He moved to stand between the weapon and Ash's cage, spreading his arms wide. No, he said, his voice shaking but firm. You're not taking her. The raiders stopped, then burst out laughing. You're protecting an animal? The leader said. You stupid, or just crazy? She's not an animal, Daniel said. She's intelligent. She has feelings, and I won't let you hurt her. The leader's smile faded. Kid, you got 10 seconds to move, or I'll shoot through you to get to that cage. Behind him, Daniel heard something. A creaking sound, metal under stress. He didn't dare look back, keeping his eyes on the raiders. I'm not moving, he said quietly. The leader shrugged and aimed his weapon directly at Daniel's chest. Your choice. The creaking sound grew louder. Then, with a screech of tearing metal, Ash broke through the damaged lock on her cage door. But she didn't run for freedom. She moved like lightning, placing herself between Daniel and the raiders, her body low and ready to strike. A growl came from her throat that made the whole cargo hold seem to vibrate. The raiders stopped laughing. The scarred raider leader, who the others called Scourge, took a step back. His weapon was still pointed at them, but his hands weren't quite as steady as before. That cage was rated for a Ragnar 7, he said, more to himself than anyone else. How did it? The lock was damaged when you breached the hull, Daniel said, surprised at how calm his voice sounded. His heart was hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs, but he kept his hand on Ash's flank. Her muscles were coiled tight, ready to explode into violence. Easy, Daniel whispered to her. Not yet. Ash's growl dropped to a lower rumble, but she didn't move. Her eyes were locked on Scourge, one of the other raiders. A thin alien with too many arms raised his weapon. Boss, we can take it. There's 3 of us. You ever seen what a Ragnar 7 can do? Scourge asked, not taking his eyes off Ash. I have. Watched one tear through a reinforced bunker like it was paper. And that was a young one. She's injured, the 3rd raider pointed out. Look at the splint. Don't matter. Even injured, she could kill all 3 of us before we got 2 shots off. Scourge's jaw tightened. Back up. Slowly. But the thin raider didn't listen. We came for the Predator, and we're taking it. The boss is paying a fortune for, he fired. Ash moved faster than Daniel's eyes could follow. One moment she was standing still. The next she had knocked Daniel aside with her shoulder and lunged forward. The energy bolt went wide, scorching the wall behind them. Ash's jaws closed on the raider's weapon arm, and there was a horrible crunch. The raider screamed and dropped his gun. Ash released him, and he stumbled back, clutching his broken arm. Don't kill him, Daniel shouted. Ash, please. And somehow impossibly she listened. She planted herself between Daniel and the raiders again, blood on her teeth, but made no move to finish the wounded one. Scourge stared at them. It obeys you. She understands me, Daniel corrected. There's a difference. Impossible. These things are pure predator instinct. You're wrong. Daniel's fear was being replaced by anger. You see her as a thing to be sold. I see her as someone. That's why she's protecting me. The ship shuddered again, and somewhere in the distance, there were sounds of weapons fire. The main battle was still going on. Scourge glanced at the corridor, calculating. We got problems, boss, the 3rd raider said, checking a device on his wrist. Station security is pushing our teams back on decks 2 and 4. Scourge swore. Then he looked at Daniel with something that might have been respect. You got guts, human. Stupid guts, but guts. Tell you what, we're leaving. But this isn't over. That creature is worth too much to just walk away from. Her name is Ash, Daniel said. and you'll have to go through both of us. Scourge smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. We'll see. He backed toward the door, his weapon still raised. The other two raiders followed, the injured one leaving a trail of blood. Once they were in the corridor, Scourge hit a control panel, and the door slammed shut, sealing with a hiss. Daniel's legs gave out, and he sat down hard on the floor. Ash immediately moved to his side, nudging him with her massive head. He wrapped his arms around her neck, feeling her warm breath on his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved my life." Ash made a soft sound, almost like a purr, and pressed closer to him. The moment was broken by the cargo hold's main door opening. Grint rushed in, weapon ready, and stopped dead when he saw Daniel sitting on the floor with Ash beside him. The broken cage. The blood on the wall where the raider had been injured. "What happened?" Grint demanded. Daniel explained quickly, his words tumbling over each other. Grint's expression shifted from disbelief to shock to something that looked almost like shame. "She protected you," Grint said slowly. "The predator protected you. I told you she was intelligent. I thought." Grint shook his head. "I thought you were being foolish. Soft. But maybe I was the fool." More crew members arrived, including Captain Hollis and Pyra. They all stopped and stared at the scene. Daniel could see them trying to process what they were seeing. A deadly predator from one of the galaxy's most dangerous worlds, sitting calmly next to a human cargo handler. "The raiders are retreating," Captain Hollis said, though he sounded distracted. "We drove them off, but they'll be back with reinforcements. We need to get to the main station and call for help." "What about Ash?" Daniel asked. Everyone looked at him. "The creature," he clarified, then shook his head. "No, Ash. Her name is Ash." Pyra's compound eyes whirred as they focused on him. "You have named it her. And yes, that is highly irregular." "Pyra," Captain Hollis said quietly, "that creature just offended one of our crew from armed raiders. I think we're past worrying about irregular." The captain looked at Daniel, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time since he had joined the crew. "Can you keep her calm while we move to a more secure location?" "Yes, sir." "Then do it." "And Daniel, I owe you an apology." "We all do." Daniel stood up, keeping one hand on Ash's shoulder. She rose with him, moving smoothly despite her injured leg. As they walked toward the door, the crew members parted to let them through. No one was laughing anymore. No one was mocking. They were all watching Ash with new eyes, seeing not a mindless predator, but something more, someone more. And Daniel finally felt like maybe, just maybe, the universe wasn't as cold as he had thought. The crew gathered in the main conference room, a cramped space that smelled like recycled air and old coffee. Everyone looked exhausted. The raider attack had been repelled, but the damage was significant. 2 crew members were in medical bay with serious injuries, and the station's main engine was still offline. Daniel sat in the corner with Ash lying beside his chair. She was too big to fit comfortably in the room, but she had curled herself into the smallest space possible. Her amber eyes tracked everyone who moved, but she stayed calm as long as Daniel kept his hand on her head. Captain Hollis stood at the head of the table, his face grim. "We've sent distress signals, but help won't arrive for at least 2 days. The raiders damaged our long-range communications, so we're running on emergency backups." "What about the contract?" someone asked. "The research facility is expecting delivery in 18 hours. We'll have to break it," Hollis said. "Even if we could repair the engines in time, I'm not sending anyone anywhere until we're sure it's safe." Pyra's translator clicked. "Breaking the contract will result in significant financial penalties. The facility has already paid half the transport fee." "I don't care about the money," Daniel said, and everyone turned to look at him. "Ash saved our lives. All of us. We can't just hand her over to be locked in another cage." "It's not that simple," Hollis replied, but his tone was gentle. "There are laws, regulations. The facility has legal ownership." "Ownership?" Daniel felt anger rising in his chest. "She's not property. You all saw what happened. She made a choice. She chose to protect me instead of running for freedom." Grint shifted in his seat. "The human is right. I saw the footage from the cargo hold security feed. The creature had multiple opportunities to escape, but she stayed to defend Daniel. That shows intelligence. It shows pack bonding behavior, Pyra countered. Many species bond with those who feed them. It does not necessarily indicate sentience. She didn't just defend him, Grant continued. She showed restraint. Could have killed those raiders easily, but she only injured them. That's tactical thinking, not instinct. The room fell silent. Daniel looked around at the faces of his crewmates. Some seemed convinced. Others looked uncertain. But no one was dismissing his words anymore. There's another problem, Hollis said after a moment. That raider leader, Scourge, he recognized the value of a Ragnar 7 predator. Word is going to spread. Even if we wanted to complete the delivery, the route isn't safe anymore. So what do? Someone asked. We wait for rescue. Then we take this to the Galactic Council, Hollis decided. Let them sort out the legal mess. In the meantime, Daniel, you seem to be the only one she trusts. You're officially assigned as her handler. Handler makes it sound like she's a pet, Daniel protested. Fine. Her companion. Her friend. Whatever you want to call it. Hollis rubbed his eyes. Just keep her from eating anyone, okay? That got a few nervous laughs. Ash's ears twitched at the sound, and she looked up at Daniel as if asking what was funny. He scratched behind her ears, and she leaned into his touch. Over the next day, something shifted on the station. Crew members who had avoided the cargo hold started visiting, bringing offerings of food or just sitting quietly to observe. Ash tolerated them, though she stayed close to Daniel. Pyra was the most persistent. She set up monitoring equipment and took endless notes, studying every interaction between Daniel and Ash. Fascinating, she said, watching as Ash carefully took a piece of fruit from Daniel's hand. She modulates her bite pressure based on what she is handling. That requires fine motor control and awareness. I've been telling you she's smart, Daniel said. I am beginning to recalculate my initial assessment. Pyra tilted her head. How do you communicate complex ideas to her? I talk to her like a person. Use simple words, but I don't talk down to her. And I pay attention to what she tells me. She cannot speak. Not with words. But look, Daniel pointed. See how her ears are forward and her tail is relaxed? That means she's comfortable. When she's uncertain, her ears flatten and she watches everything. When she's protective, she positions herself between me and whatever worries her. Pyra made more notes. Body language as a communication system. Primitive, but effective. It's not primitive, Daniel said firmly. It's just different from yours. That evening, as Daniel was preparing to sleep in the cargo hold, Grint approached. The big reptilian looked uncomfortable, his scales shifting color slightly. I wanted to say something, Grint began, then paused. I was wrong about you. About humans in general, maybe. I thought kindness was weakness. Thought you needed to be hard to survive out here. It's okay, Daniel said. No, it's not. Grint's voice was rough. I made your life difficult when you first arrived. Mocked you in front of others. Started that betting pool about when the creature would hurt you. I was cruel, and I'm sorry. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Ash watched the exchange, her intelligent eyes moving between them. Apology accepted, Daniel finally said. But I need you to understand something. I'm not kind because I'm weak or because I don't know better. I'm kind because I choose to be. Because I think the galaxy needs more compassion, not less. Grint nodded slowly. Teach me. What? Teach me your way. I've spent 30 years in space being hard, being tough. And what did it get me? Scars and nightmares. He looked at Ash. But you spent 6 months being kind, and you made a friend who would die to protect you. I want to learn how to do that. Daniel smiled. It starts with seeing others as people, not things. Even when they're different from you. Grint extended his hand, and Daniel shook it. Ash made an approving sound and rested her head on Daniel's lap. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The council hearing, the legal battles, maybe even more raiders. But tonight, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The Galactic Council representative arrived exactly 48 hours after the attack. Her name was Ambassador Kyria, a tall being with translucent skin that shimmered in different colors depending on her mood. Right now, she was showing deep purple, which Daniel's data pad translated as intense curiosity. She stood in the cargo hold, watching as Ash played with a large ball that Grint had fabricated in the machine shop. The predator batted it back and forth with surprising gentleness, occasionally looking at Daniel as if to make sure he was watching. "Remarkable," Curious said. "I have reviewed the security footage multiple times. The creature demonstrated clear decision-making ability and emotional intelligence." "Her name is Ash," Daniel said for what felt like the 100th time. "Yes, of course." Kiria's skin flickered apologetically to light blue. "My apologies." "Ash, tell me," Daniel read, "how did you establish this bond?" Daniel shrugged. "I treated her with respect. Fed her, talked to her, tended her wounds. Same way you'd make friends with anyone. But she's from a death world. Her species is classified as extremely dangerous. Humans are from a death world too," Daniel pointed out. "Earth has predators, natural disasters, diseases. We're dangerous if we want to be, but we can also choose to be kind." Kiria's skin shifted through several colors before settling on thoughtful green. "The research facility is demanding we honor the contract. They have legal ownership and have already invested significant resources. She's not theirs to own. The law disagrees. Creatures without verified sentience can be classified as property." Daniel felt his fists clench. "Then the law is wrong." "Perhaps." Kiria walked closer to the barrier the crew had set up, a line of safety tape that marked Ash's space. "The council has agreed to a hearing tomorrow. They want to see the evidence themselves. Can you demonstrate her intelligence? She's not a performing animal. I understand your frustration, but if we were to change her legal status, we need proof. Undeniable proof." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay on a cot in the cargo hold, staring at the ceiling while Ash slept nearby. Her breathing was deep and steady, occasionally interrupted by soft sounds that might have been dreams. "What are we going to do, girl?" he whispered. Ash's ear twitched, but she didn't wake. Daniel watched her in the dim light. Over the past days, he had learned so much about her. How she was playful in the mornings, calm in the evenings. How she hated loud noises but loved music. How she would bring him things she found interesting, like a child showing a parent a cool rock. She was a person. Not human, but a person nonetheless. And the idea of her being locked in a research facility, studied like an object, made him sick. The hearing took place in the station's main conference hall. The room was packed with crew members, officials, and observers. Ambassador Kiria presided over it, with two other council members joining via hologram that on one side sat the representatives from the research facility. Dr. Velan, the director, was a cold-looking alien with too many eyes. Next to him sat several lawyers, their data pads already filled with precedents and regulations. Daniel sat on the other side with Captain Hollis and Grint. Ash was in an adjacent room, visible through a transparent wall, but separated for safety reasons. She paced near the glass, her eyes on Daniel. "This hearing will determine the legal status of the Ragnar 7 specimen," Kiria began. "Her name is Ash," Daniel interrupted. Dr. Velan's eyes swiveled toward him. "It is a specimen, a valuable one that belongs to our facility. We have contracts, payment records, and full legal ownership." "You can't own a person," Daniel said. "It is not a person. It is an animal that saved my life and the lives of this crew. Pack bonding behavior. Nothing more." Velan pulled up images on a screen. "Ragnar, 7 predators are known to bond with alpha members of a group. This human fed it, so it imprinted. This does not indicate sentience." Grint stood up. "With respect, Doctor, you're wrong. I've watched the footage 100 times. Ash didn't just defend Daniel. She made tactical decisions. She injured raiders without killing them, showing restraint. She positioned herself for maximum defensive coverage. That's not instinct. You are not a xenobiologist," Velan said dismissively. "No, but I'm a soldier. I know tactical thinking when I see it." Pyra rose next. "I have compiled data over the past 72 hours. Ash demonstrates tool use, problem-solving abilities, and complex social behaviors. Her interactions show theory of mind. She understands that Daniel has thoughts and feelings separate from her own. Anecdotal evidence," one of the lawyers said. "None of this proves sentience under galactic law." Ambassador Kiria held up a hand. Let us conduct a direct test. Daniel read, "Are you willing to demonstrate Ash's intelligence?" Daniel nodded and stood. "But I need to do it my way. No calles, no videos. Just trust." Velan started to protest, but Kyria cut him off. "Agreed. This is a council hearing, not a laboratory. Proceed." Security opened the door to the adjacent room, and Ash bounded out immediately. Several observers flinched back, but Ash ignored them all, going straight to Daniel. She pressed against his side, and he felt her trembling slightly. "It's okay," he murmured. "I'm here." He led her to the center of the room, where everyone could see. Then he did something that made the lawyers gasp. He removed the emergency tranquilizer from his belt and set it on the floor. No weapons, no safety measures. Just him and Ash. "Ash," he said clearly, "these people need to understand what you are. Can you show them?" Ash looked at him, then at the crowd. Her lips pulled back slightly, showing teeth, and several people moved toward the exits. "No, girl," Daniel said gently. "Not like that. Show them who you really are." And then he did something he had been practicing in private. He held out his hand, palm up, and waited. Ash stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, carefully, deliberately, she placed her paw in his palm. The room went completely silent. Daniel held Ash's paw gently, feeling the weight of it, the deadly claws that could shred steel being held with perfect control. He looked up at the crowd, at Ambassador Kyria, at Dr. Velan with his multiple eyes wide with shock. "This is choice," Daniel said quietly. "Not training, not instinct. Ash understands what this moment means. She knows you're deciding her future, and she's choosing to trust me, to show you that she's more than what you think she is." He released her paw, and Ash sat down beside him. Then, without any prompting, she placed her other paw on his shoulder. A gesture of protection, of partnership, of friendship. Ambassador Kyria's skin cycled through a rainbow of colors before settling on bright gold. "I have never seen anything like this." "Because you've never tried to see them as equals," Daniel said. "You see Death World creatures as threats or resources. But what if we tried seeing them as neighbors?" Dr. Velan stood abruptly. "This is manipulation. The human has clearly trained the creature to perform these gestures. It means nothing." "Then test her yourself," Daniel challenged. "Come here. Try to command her. If she's just trained, she'll obey anyone, right?" Velan hesitated, and Daniel saw fear flicker across his face. "I'm not a trainer." "Exactly. Because she's not trained. She makes her own choices." Daniel turned to Ambassador Kyria. "You asked for proof of sentience. Under galactic law, what defines sentience?" Kyria consulted her datapad. "Self-awareness, capacity for complex thought, ability to communicate intent, and demonstration of autonomous decision-making." Ash has shown all of that. She chose to protect me instead of escaping. She chose to show restraint instead of killing. And she just chose to demonstrate trust in front of all of you. One of the council members spoke through the hologram. "What of language? True sentience requires communication." "She communicates," Daniel insisted. "Just not with words. Watch." He walked to the other side of the room, and Ash followed. Then he picked up 3 different colored objects that Grant had prepared: a red ball, a blue cube, and a yellow cylinder. "Ash," he said, "can you bring me the blue one?" Ash looked at the objects, then carefully picked up the cube in her mouth and brought it to him. The crowd murmured. "Now the yellow one." She brought the cylinder. "Now the red one." She brought the ball. "Color recognition and following complex instructions," Pyrrhus stated. "That exceeds the capability of most trained animals." "It's still not language," Velan argued, but his voice was weaker now. Daniel knelt beside Ash. "One more thing. Ash, if you want to stay with me, put your paw on my hand. If you won't leave, if you want your freedom to go anywhere you choose, walk to the door." The room held its breath. Ash looked at Daniel, then at the door. Freedom was right there, just a few meters away. After everything she had been through, the capture, the cage, the pain, she could just walk away. Instead, she placed her paw in Daniel's hand and leaned against him. Daniel felt tears running down his face, and he didn't care who saw. "You see? She chooses to be here. That's not instinct. That's love." Ambassador Kyria stood. "I have seen enough. The council will now deliberate. The wait was agonizing. Daniel sat with Ash in the adjacent room, his arms around her neck, while the council members discussed in private. Grint and Pyra stayed with them, neither speaking but offering support through their presence. Finally, after what felt like hours, they were called back that Kyria's skin was a calm blue as she addressed the room. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. After reviewing all evidence, we find that the Ragnar 7 individual known as Ash has demonstrated sufficient markers of sentience to warrant legal recognition. Daniel's heart leaped, but Kyria wasn't finished. Therefore, the ownership contract is hereby voided. Ash is granted the status of sentient being under galactic law, with all rights and protections that entails. She may not be bought, sold, or held against her will. Dr. Veland stood, his multiple eyes blazing. This is outrageous. The economic implications are irrelevant. Kyria cut him off. Sentient beings are not commodities. The research facility will be compensated for its expenses, but the council's ruling is final. She turned to Daniel. Ash is free to choose her own path, as is her right. Daniel Reed, you have demonstrated remarkable compassion and wisdom. You saw a person where others saw only a specimen. The galaxy is better for individuals like you. Daniel looked down at Ash, and she looked back up at him. What do you want to do? He asked her softly. You're free now. You can go anywhere. Ash pressed closer to him, and her meaning was clear. Captain Hollis stepped forward. If I may, Ambassador, I would like to offer both Daniel and Ash positions on my crew. We could use their unique skills, and frankly, I think they could teach us all something about what it means to be civilized. What kind of positions? Kyria asked. Diplomatic liaisons. There are dozens of species on the outer rim that we barely understand. Maybe what we need isn't more scientists or soldiers. Maybe we need people who know how to build bridges. Daniel felt a smile spreading across his face. What do you think, girl? Want to help me show the galaxy that kindness works? Ash's tail wagged, and she made a sound that somehow conveyed absolute agreement. 3 months later, Daniel stood on the observation deck of a new ship. Not a freight hauler this time, but a proper diplomatic vessel. Ash stood beside him, watching the stars stream past as they traveled to their first official mission. Grint had joined them, eager to learn what he called the human way. Pyra was there too, documenting everything and writing papers on cross-species communication that were changing academic minds across the galaxy. Never thought I'd end up here, Daniel said to Ash. Scared cargo handler from Earth, now representing humanity to the stars. Ash bumped his hand with her nose, and he scratched behind her ears. You know what's funny? Everyone kept telling me kindness was weakness. That would get me killed. He looked down at her. But it's the only reason either of us is alive. The door opened, and Captain Hollis entered. We're approaching the station. The local species is reportedly hostile to outsiders. They've refused contact with every council ship that's approached. What makes you think we'll be different? Daniel asked. Hollis smiled. Because you don't see them as a problem to be solved. You see them as people to be understood. That's what the galaxy needs right now. As they prepared to dock, Daniel felt Ash lean against him, her warmth and strength a constant reminder of what he had learned. The universe could be cold and cruel, but it could also be kinda IT just needed people willing to choose kindness, even when everyone laughed at them for it. Especially when everyone laughed at them for it. The station came into view, and Daniel took a deep breath. Ready for another adventure? Ash's tail wagged. They walked toward the airlock together, human and predator, friend and guardian, proving with every step that the greatest strength in the galaxy wasn't weapons or technology, that IT was the courage to be kind.